Amputate to Elevate Success, the podcast where leaders and executives share the truth about what they had to amputate in order to elevate to their greatest levels of success. Now, I'm your host, John Register. My journey began as an elite athlete and a U.S. Army veteran, and after an injury that changed the course of my life, 2 lost careers with 1 wrong step, I discovered that success isn't about overcoming. It's about adapting, innovating, and communicating in new ways. Now, this podcast is part of my Elevate Life Executive Series hosted on Beehive and designed to give leaders facing high-stakes transitions the tools that they need to navigate change with confidence. And our focus is communication, but when leaders sharpen their ability to connect, they elevate not just themselves, but the entire organization. So if you are ready to level up your leadership, I ask you to hit that like, that share, and that follow for this show. So help us spread the message so more leaders can find courage to amputate what no longer serves them and then step boldly into their next chapter by elevating. So our guest today, I am so excited to introduce a guest who embodies transformation in every sense of the word, Dr. Florian Ilgen. Now, Dr. Ilgen is a keynote speaker, best-selling author, and digital visibility mentor who bridges the worlds of artificial intelligence, leadership, and change. And with a PhD in chemistry, he's been fascinated by transformation from the molecular level all the way to the human behavior and organizational growth. Known as the encourager by the Schwäbische Zeitung, Florian has a gift for reconnecting people with their passion for change. The EKM-Model combines profound knowledge, inspiring motivation, and captivating entertainment, leaving audiences not just informed, but transformed. Whether he's guiding executives through the AI revolution, inspiring teams to embrace innovation, or showing companies how to scale with smart digital growth strategies, Florian's message is clear. Growth happens when you have the vision and the courage to explore the unknown. Sound familiar? Can't wait to get into this conversation. This is going to be a fascinating conversation full of insight and leadership, artificial intelligence, and the mindset shifts required to thrive in our ever-changing world. We'll dive in right after this show intro. Florian, welcome. Thank you so much. I know you're all the way across the pond. It's all night over there in Germany, but I appreciate you being on, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you for this beautiful introduction.
Absolutely. So always starting the show, well, I want to back up because I usually start with the one question. I want to start just to kind of how we got to know one another at the National Speakers Association and on the elevator. So you're going on. I saw you had your beautiful award, the Certified Speaking Professional. Congratulations on that profound award. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So my first question for you today is, what did you have to amputate in order to elevate to your success?
I thought about that, and in the beginning, I didn't find anything until it struck. And I'm a chemist, as you introduced me, and I'm very organized, I'm very structured, very analytical, and I'm German, so super perfectionist. And after I finished my PhD in chemistry, I became a magician like 16 years ago, and I did shows, and I turned into a mentalist, and I was very structured. And I had scripts for all my shows and stuff like that. And I was a perfectionist, and it helped me in the beginning to get good to okay shows. And at some point I felt that this perfectionism was limiting me, and I started to meditate, to get to be more fluent, to be more in the flow and less structured. And once I did that, actually magic happened, because I wasn't afraid of doing mistakes on stage anymore, and I was completely authentic. I was in the zone. I was in my flow state. And once I lost this perfectionism, because I would be so tense before my shows, before my talks, and I would have a almost negative energy. And if things wouldn't work the way I wanted them to work, I was tense, and it wasn't a good show. So once I lost this perfectionism, and I became in the zone. Oh no, how can I say that? Once I was completely flowing, the things turned out to be perfect. And I was having much more fun, and the results and the feedback from the audience was much better.
You know, that's a hard one for a lot of people. Doesn't matter if you're German or not. Perfectionism is one of those things that keeps us paralyzed from moving to the next level, I think, in our realm. So maybe you found that perfectionism has, or the lack of, and not trying to be as prepared, but still knowing what you are doing has morphed into other areas of your life as well. Have you found that to be true, like for your speaking career, for the magician, for the chemist in you, and all these things that are rigid, but you just kind of go in, as you said, a state of flow?
Actually, perfectionism helps in the beginning. It's because it helps you to achieve results. However, it limits you, and it doesn't matter if you speak about stage. It's in your business life, in your private life. It's everywhere, because once you're authentic, once you're genuine, when you're exactly in the flow, you can elevate, you can get better, and the perfectionism limits growth. Actually, I mean, where does it come from? My dad used to be a perfectionist. He passed away, and he was a swimmer. He was a swimmer. He's I think within his age category, he's vice world champion, and he was very perfectionistic. And my mom was slightly mocking him, and she would hang up a sign saying, "Perfectionism excludes happiness." And it's true. It's the more perfectionist you are, the more difficult it gets to be happy.
You know, I have found that, and I found that almost similarly with you and being a magician, but myself and telling stories from the stage. I now am more in that flow where I'm really focused in on the audience and what their needs are. And it's been a process and a journey for me, for sure, thinking that I had to direct every single thing from the stage. And now I would say it's about 60-40, where my audience is driving the conversation. So even one of my last keynotes to an international company, I began with a poll question. And whatever they chose in the word to build the word cloud with, whatever word came forward, that was going to be the direction of the keynote.
Beautiful.
It was because that freed me from having to really, I knew where I could go with it, but at the same time, I didn't know where they were. And I didn't know if that was going to align with the person that was preparing me for that event. And I believe that's what we can do, as you say, that you have to start off with trying to be perfect and what is it that you want to deliver, but then you have to throw everything away and say, let's just show up in service for the audience. And you have something that I think is critical for speakers. And I've been looking at it and looking at trying to learn it more, because I have one as well. And that's creating a model for people to follow, a pathway, kind of the breadcrumbs to go. And this EKM model, blending entertainment, knowledge, and motivation, how did you come about with this framework? Maybe linking it to perfectionism, or how you've grown into flow so that you can release other people.
What I was thinking, what do I like? What do I love? And where do I come from? And actually, this is the basis of this model. It's EKM, it's entertainment, it's know-how and motivation. I love to do magic. I love to do mentalism, and I still blend it into my talks, because Usually when I give keynote speeches about change, I'm booked and they want me to change the people or to inspire the people to do something in a different fashion. So all the people within the audience, within a company, usually go like this, and okay, so this guy tells me about change and we have to change. So there's skepticism in the beginning, and my goal is to break the ice. And I do this with entertainment. So I break the ice, I make them curious. That's the beginning. That's how I can open up people and their interest, because the audiences are completely different. I have salespeople which I consider easier than, for example, Swiss bankers, which are very analytical and more introverted. So entertainment opens up people and makes them curious. So that's stage one. The second pillar is know-how. I'm still a chemist. I'm interested in what's happening on our brain on a neurochemical basis. When do we release adrenaline, noradrenaline, when it comes to change? When we think about losing things, or we think about for example, about loss aversion, we have to change the things we've done so far. We release those hormones, and they're stress hormones. And that makes us difficult to change because we get a neurochemical pain. So I explain them those things and how we can actually reconnect with our passion, and then we release dopamine. Like this, people understand, okay, he's not just an entertainer, he's not just entertaining. At the same time, he has a scientific background, and like this, I establish trust. Once I entertain them, establish trust, then and only then they listen. Then I can motivate them to get out of the comfort zone, to try new things, to be like kids again, to commit mistakes, to try, to play. And those are the 3 steps. And actually, I found this quite versatile, and it's working on different audiences. And actually, you can use this in general. You can use this in private life and business life, and obviously as a keynote speaker.
You know, that process that you have to get people primed is another thing I think that newer speakers or speakers that are just doing one directional conversations don't get to, because they think that it's only one way to deliver a program. And being able to get them, as you're saying, with entertainment, and then hitting them with some context, and then you can get them to experience the process that I've been using. I call it SPADSAT. It's SPAADSAT. No one ever gets the acronym right, but I know what it is. And so my entertainment is story. I'm a good storyteller, very good storyteller. So I engage them with story, because everybody, all of us, from our primal instincts, love story. We connect through story. And so your Swiss banker engineers, even that, there are stories there that tell them how to move the money, or, protect their clients, whatever they're going to do. So that's one thing. And then for going into I try to help people release that. So I have a story, my point, and then application to the audience. So what about you? How does this impact you? So then I have them wrestle with it in their own vernacular. So I'd say, so this is the story that was just presented to you. How does it show up in your work? How does it show up in your life? And now let's debrief that back to me. So now we're all learning together, because I've gone first, and then they experience it, and they experience it in their own vernacular. And then now we're having a deeper conversation. And then I can lead them where they need to go, because that's how I break down that trust factor. When you are looking at the EKM model, how does this, how have you seen it work well with other companies? Like, who does it works well for everybody, but when you, like, what's your favorite audience to put this in front of to release them?
I think I like salespeople. Salespeople usually are quite curious. They want to achieve results. They're dominant, and they love this game, maybe this challenge, because I do, from my from my times as when I was a mentalist. So I do mentalism experiments, stuff like that with the subconscious mind, and they want to figure out how does that work. At the same time, a person like a Swiss banker is even more analytical. So he has a higher desire to find out how did he do this effect. Because I finished my talk with a experiment from the mentalism where I do something incredible, which is basically impossible. So it's an effect. It's like I'm still the showman. I love that. I would never give a talk without entertainment. If companies inquire and they say, just AI, just change, we do not want this entertaining part, I would admit I'm the wrong person, because I want to have fun on stage. Once I have fun, I connect, they have fun.
Right.
So to which audience does it work most? I think salespeople, in general, people that I can turn into curious people. I even did it for people in IT, which are very logical and which have maybe difficulties to open up, because we have some interactions during the talk, and they'll do some exercises with their fingers, and in the end, one person comes up on stage. I think salespeople.
Yeah. I find that the ones that are engaged with me, sales is good, but it's those that are in like the profession of service. So they're serving other people. And, my Amputate to Elevate action model kind of works well with them, this reckoning, revision, and renewal, and an appreciation that they see along with the activity. But I've been thinking about, sales is good because with champions mindset, they see that it's always about going to the next level. It's always about moving that 1% more, and it helps them understand how they can actually do it as well. So that's fascinating with it. You talked a little bit about AI, and so I know you've done presentations now with artificial intelligence. I know Sandra Dumas, one of my good friends, she calls it advisory intelligence. How are you finding that now with, we've been around it, I guess, at the taping of this show for about 3 years now, where people are starting to figure it out, but there's still a lot of resistance to it. How are you finding it that you're able to expand that conversation in your keynote?
Can you specify?
Yeah, so maybe with with artificial intelligence, right? There are a lot of people that resist it, even right now, and they're not moving into it. And I think that AI is to a Google search as a stamp and a letter, or email is to a stamp and a letter, right? Yeah. It's another iteration. It's going faster. It's supposed to build more connection, but it's building it, kind of getting us apart. So how are you showing leadership that this is something that's coming, or how to use, or what are you doing with it to explain?
Well, first of all, I give the example of my mom. My mom is she's 83 years old, and years ago I told her, because she's in Lindau, south of Germany, and I was in Munich, where I studied and where I used to live. So she called me if I had to solve problems, like technical problems. And once I told her, hey, you can Google the question. This was already a miracle. So the phone calls declined a little bit. And then once I told her, hey, you can use ChatGPT on your mobile phone. And she told me, no, I do not need that. I have Google. Eventually, she downloaded the app, and she's using ChatGPT now. And I was wondering, because I didn't get that many calls anymore. And I was like, what's happening? And she told me, ChatGPT? This is amazing. This is better than Google. And I was like, wow, she's 83 years old. And she's like, I do appreciate that a lot, that she's trying out things. And once I have people in my talk and they say, we don't need that, blah, blah, blah. I think we have to be like kids and try things out. We have to explore. We have to be We have to be fearlessly curious, just to try things out, because changing a habit involves releasing dopamine. Once we release the hormone dopamine, which is the happiness hormone, or the hormone of pleasant anticipation, we become addicted to things. Once we become addicted to things, we do them over and over again. So we have to connect, or we have to establish this loop just once. We have to see a benefit of a new methodology, of a new tool, of a new app. Then we connect neurochemically, and then things become easy. So my advice is to just try things out. Of course, in my talk, I give them crazy examples how we as speakers, how we can facilitate and make things much easier for us. So we have to try things out. We can only connect with things once we try them out and we learned that that's beneficial for us. And in the end, we become drug addicts to our own dopamine, and then we're like kids and we play. From play, we become professionals.
Yeah, that's so good. I was writing something down here, and I was like, "No, how can I actually release more dopamine in my talk?" Right? So, and for the audience, because that you're right, getting them to try the new, which is it's a scary thing. That's why my resilience action model works so well, because people resist the change at first, but you have to grieve the loss of it. If you don't really grieve the loss, then you can't move forward into the next phase. You've said that one of the biggest blockers of change is loss aversion. Loss aversion. How do you help leaders and teams outsmart this resistance? And before you answer that question, we're going to go into a little quick commercial break, and we'll come back and we're going to hear from Dr. Florian Ilgen real quickly on his answer to that question. So stay tuned. What does it take to lead when the stakes are high and the pressure is real? I'm John Register, Paralympic silver medalist, Army combat veteran, and Hall of Fame keynote speaker. Now, my keynote, Amputate to Elevate, the Courage to Lead, honors excellence, inspiring change, and shows audience how courage is not in the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward in spite of it. Leaders who bring courage to their teams, they elevate performance. Employees stop, playing it safe and start bringing their best selves every single day to the office. They pursue progress, not perfection, by aiming for just 1% to 2% better, one step at a time. So if your organization is ready to honor excellence, inspire change, and unlock performance elevation, then it's time to book Amputate to Elevate, Courage to Lead. I'm John Register. Let's amputate fear and elevate success together. Bye for now. Back to our conversation with Dr. Florian Ilgen. Thank you so much, Elgen. Thank you so much for being here. And so we had a question for you. The biggest blocker of change is loss aversion, as you said, and just want to know how you help leaders and teams outsmart this resistance.
I make them realize that all the emotions, all the fears, all the positive emotions are located in the subconscious mind. And we can tell ourselves, do not fear things or change things. And all this conversation is happening in the conscious mind, but not in the subconscious mind. So we have to understand that once we get the right tools, the right language to address the subconscious or the unconscious mind, we become more and more successful, and it's easier for us to change. And I always give the example of Daniel Kahneman. Probably you've read the book Fast Thinking, Slow Thinking. And he explains that loss aversion is a mere illusion, because he did an experiment. He sold mugs to a test audience, and on average, the people would buy the mug for like $3. And the second step of the experiment, the mugs were sold, money was collected, and then Kahneman said, "Okay, we want to buy back the mugs." Pronunciation. How much money do we have to pay you to get the mug back? And on average, do you know this example?
No, I don't. I'm listening. I'm intrigued.
What do you guess on average? How much were the participants who bought the mug? How much were they asking so that they would give away the mug?
I would say double.
The shocking result is something we buy for $3. We're willing to give away again on average for $7. So we attribute more value to things that they actually have. This is the reason, by the way, why the basement and the attic is full with stuff we do not need anymore. We could have thrown away 2 years ago. So with all the material things, no problem, no big deal. However, with all the methodologies, all the tools, all the ways, all the routes that made us successful, it's more difficult to get rid of them. And we attribute more value that they actually have. Once we have this understanding, we will see that loss aversion is just an illusion on the unconscious mind. And in my talk, I give 3 different ways how to overcome loss aversion and how to make change easier. Once we understand the theory behind it, because you can tell yourself, that doesn't make sense. $3, $7. Still, that's what you tell yourself, conscious level. However, you have to feel that on the subconscious level. We have to implement that on the subconscious level and really understand it. Actually, it's not understanding, it's feeling on the subconscious level that loss aversion is an illusion.
And
however, it's an illusion, but it does something on our brain and in our body, because the loss aversion releases this adrenaline and noradrenaline, so the stress hormones, and they push us back into the comfort zone.
That's why my door's closed, so you can't see everything in my basement that I don't need anymore.
Piling up things.
You cannot see it. It's fascinating. With every model, sometimes there's some people that will challenge the model, and so where does the EKM model not work so well? Have you seen it not work in a space, or how do you adapt when something doesn't land with the audience when you're using the model?
Sometimes, we as keynote speakers, we love jokes. Some of the jokes we maybe planned or scripted didn't work at all. Maybe you had that before? Actually, the best jokes in my keynote came from the audiences. Like something happened by coincidence, or a member of the audience made a joke, and the whole audience laughed. And so I adopted his or her joke. I'm using the same joke, so I can tell by the laughter, by the reaction, how good the connection between me and the audience is. And usually, that's a little giveaway. Usually, if I make a joke and it doesn't work, I will go like, okay, don't do this joke for this audience again. And with that, they laugh. If they do not laugh with that as well, I know, okay, I drop my expectations and I simply go on, and I still try to do. I'm on stage. My goal on stage is to engage the audience, to deliver messages. At the same time, I want them to open up. Some audiences are harder than other audiences.
Yeah.
Is that? A talk is a higher level than a show, at least from my experience. Because when I did shows, I had, as a mentalist, for Christmas parties, for example, you have companies that have not that much white collar people, but more blue collar people. So they start drinking alcohol and they do not pay attention to what this guy on stage is saying. And those were the toughest shows I ever had in my life. And I learned to go on and deliver. At some point, the show must go on, literally. And you just deliver. But I prefer to have the highest level of fun, so I can give this fun and this energy to the audience and to resonate with the audience.
We're at a stage right now, at least I think in the US market, where it's we're isolated.
we're kind of getting isolated. And we're talking a little bit early in the show that you're off to Spain and you're going to do some work in Mexico City. And so you speak, and can deliver in multiple languages. How can other speakers, that might not have that skill or capacity, can you see AI helping and supporting those that really do want to continue to connect on a global scale outside of, say, I know I'm talking about the U.S. market just for myself, but I want to speak in other areas, and I have, I've done it before in other areas with our State Department and with the United States Olympic Committee and some of those things. But in general, how can speakers kind of open up their palette to have more of those international type experiences?
What I learned during the Influence in Scottsdale, where we met, that actually as a keynote speaker, you can create an international audience by just dubbing all your YouTube clips with HeyGen, with any AI, to Chinese, to Spanish, because actually the Spanish market with Latin America is quite big. Spain, not so much, but whole Latin America, it's massive, except for Brazil. But it's so big. So what was his name again? My God, he was very early in AI. I think he's CSP as well. I attended his workout, his breakout session. Forgot, doesn't matter. He inspired me to have your videos completely dubbed with HeyGen in Mandarin and Spanish. And he doesn't speak those languages. So you can at least create an audience to get attention. You might be invited to China, you might be invited to South to Central America. If you do not speak their languages, it might be difficult. I mean, we all gave talks where you have it translated. I do not like that, because if I make a joke, they laugh twice. There's a shift in between like 3 or 4 seconds, and you lose energy. Have you done that? But you gave talks where it was translated?
I was in the Netherlands, my first time. Well, it was one of my first times in the Netherlands. I had 7 countries that were there and I got all the interpreters together, and I went through this keynote, so they knew how to interpret the jokes that were going to be there in the humor.
Very
and
smart.
So I had 7 different laughter points. It was great. I loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Because the Italians would get it, and then the Germans would get it, and then the French would get it. So it was good, and it taught me that the humor that I have is universal. That people, it's a universal humor, and so it wasn't an American humor on something. I was able to have international humor. So that's what that's what it taught me. So back to you.
So your question was, how can speakers access different markets? I think you have to learn the language, and you can always improve. You could, as I said, build an audience on YouTube, like international audience. I think probably you're speaking about English-speaking keynote speakers. I think you have to. I'm not sure if you have to. I mean, who does not speak English? I'd say as a native speaker, you have a massive advantage. So you could use AI like HeyGen to access different areas like Mandarin, like Spanish, maybe Russian, maybe not at the moment, but maybe later.
Well, China is fascinating. I've been to Beijing a couple of times, and I was blown away by the Chinese, and just the how I was treated and everything was very, not what I would have expected based upon the news that we get here. But it was an amazing experience twice, and of course it was the Beijing Games, but still it was a great experience to go over into the East.
Definitely. Yeah. So far I haven't been to China. I like Singapore, Kuala
Yeah,
Lumpur.
Singapore's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I plan on going back to Singapore. Actually, the woman I just interviewed for this podcast, she has an amazing company called B1G1. So it's kind of a sustainability company, and just an incredible woman for sure. Masami Sato is her name, and so we're thinking about doing some work over there in Singapore or in some of the other areas in that part of the world. So it's just fascinating to me that we have there's nothing that really separates us too much except for like our language. We're all made up of the same substance, right? It's our if we have the same blood type, we could exchange blood. If I was injured and you had to pump blood to me or you, and yet we have all these fights and differences that come up based upon this very small, the very smallest of my minuscule differences that come up, maybe color, eye color, hair, or whatever it might be, gender. So when you look at this and you're living your keynotes, because you're such a fantastic, international presence that you have, and you see that your EKM model is working very well in these markets. How do you engage others then to kind of proselytize the message of what you have and to go out and share what you're sharing to their networks so that your network can grow of what you're putting out in the world?
I think you have to to make them understand what the benefit is. They have to understand that, and then this message is being transferred to other people. They have to fully understand it, and then the communication starts. And there must be a benefit for them. I mean, we are all benefit driven. Like, we have to, what's in for me? Everyone asks, what's in for me? So once they understand it and that they can actually make their life easier, that they can change, and that there's a big bonus in changing, that we can get better. Once they understand that, they start communicating that. And I think if an experience is good, we love to share that.
Yes, for sure. Okay. So I want to talk real quickly about the CSP, very, very short. I want to congratulate you again on the highest designation for the National Speakers Association. And I'm glad you earned it, because if you hadn't, I wouldn't have met you.
That's true. That's true.
At least not here, maybe someplace else. But how has why is it important? Why was it important for you to earn that designation, the Certified Speaking Professional? I mean, because it's kind of a smaller, it's like a known product inside of this association, not so much on the outside. So why was it so important for you?
Actually, in the States, for example, or internationally, it's way more famous or renowned than in Germany. Actually, here, the CSP means nothing. No one knows CSP here in Germany. And my goal was to become international. And in my first NSA conference, the Influence, was 2 years ago in Orlando. And once I felt this energy, because obviously we had a CSP class then as well. And I like the energy. I like the complete energy of the Influence conference. And I told myself I want to be part of that. I want to inhale this energy, because I think the American speaker market is different from the German, from the European speaker market. It has different energy, and my goal was to become part of that market. I'm still here in the German market, German speaking market, and beyond. However, I wanted. Okay, usually, if some trends in keynote speaking are born, usually they're born in the States. And over the time, they make it over the pond, and we have them later. So my goal was, I want to be at the source. I want to be within this group. I want to be part of that. And I think it was the right decision. This year, again, at the Influence in Scottsdale, I mean, it's cool to have this medal. It's actually sitting over there because I showed it to my mom. Look what I won. What is this? It's difficult to explain.
Let me look at it on AI.
I wanted to be part of that family. And now I am part of that family. And I'm happy to share, and my goal is to grow internationally. And I think this was a very important step, even if in Germany this is unknown.
Yeah, it's similar here, but I think that one of the things that we're doing with it is, instead of us, like you're saying, that's why I want to go down this rabbit hole with you with this question, is you shared a little bit earlier, it's about the dopamine, and then when people like something, they want to share that something. So it's really good. I think it's important for us. What I'm trying to do with the CSP now is to get other of my clients to say why they hired me as a certified speaking professional. And if they don't know it, I said, well, the reason why that you're saying that I'm doing all these things for you that are extra that you didn't get before is because of this designation that lets me show up at a higher level. So if you could share that with your audience and groups, then you always want to hire a person that has the designation that maybe you have as a certified meeting professional, or that you have as whatever your designation might be. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's important to get those designations. Because it does separate you from the pack. And I would love to get to see one of your presentations live. So like I said, I can get a lot of places because my wife's a flight attendant. Last question for you. I wanted you to consider 10 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, and what you have accomplished, which has been amazing. Everybody in the world is talking about your system, the EKM model. And everything has happened for you. In order to get there, what is it that you have to amputate right now? I know we had perfectionism for what it was to get you moving, right? To get you in flow, but what's it now?
Complacency. I think to address or to spread the message of change, especially now in times of AI, I have to improve constantly. I already like change. I told you I spend my winters in Spain. I go to different cities. I like change, and at the same time, at some point, I'm getting comfortable, and at some point, I think I could change more.
Yeah, that's good.
My goal is, because I told you I'm a chemist. I did my PhD in chemistry, and everyone expected me to become a lab guy, a worker for a pharmaceutical company. And I told myself, no, I'll become a magician, which is crazy, which was very difficult to explain to my parents and other people and my colleagues. But I knew, and now I know after 16 years, that was exactly the right thing to do. And I have to inspire people to do things that are not like the norm, that are not like other people expect you to do. So this is my message, and I have to find a way to spread this message with as many people as I can do. Social media helps, of course, but at the same time, a live presentation is always better. So my goal is to give as many live presentations as possible.
Yeah.
Spread exactly that message.
It's so good. Thank you so much for being on with us. How do people
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. How do people get a hold of you and find you? What's the best way?
My website, florianilgen.com. Of course, Instagram, LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn. You just type in my name, Florian Ilgen.
And
exactly.
So I'll make sure we put that in the show notes so that everybody can have a chance to just experience this amazing human. I really appreciate your time today. Stick around. We're going to close the show, and I'll just come back for maybe a few closing thoughts just between myself and you. So we're going to close the show out. Thanks for being on.
Thanks a lot.
Wow, what an incredible conversation with Florian. His ability to blend science and leadership and digital transformation into actionable steps for growth is truly inspiring. Florian, thank you so much for joining us on Amputate to Elevate Success. And to all of our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and follow the show. And every share helps another leader discover the tools that they need to navigate their own high-stakes transition. Don't forget to sign up for Elevate Life Executive Strategy Session on Beehive. It's your chance to invest in an hour into sharpening your communication and leadership edge. We do that on Friday, breaking down exactly what Florian said, the 3 points. I'm John Register, reminding you, as always, go forth, inspire your world. Bye for now.